Welcome to day 2 of the Startup Impact Summit. We have a fantastic session for you dedicated to EduTech, trends and investments. Now, with the global pandemic, we have been forced to fully assess how we move through life, our interpersonal relationships, and what people in the community mean to us. And one of the most vocal, and I say always funny demographic, that's strongly voicing their opinion on how technology should be used are parents, because there's so many children and students who are still on homebound and learning remotely. So with everything switching to digital and distance learning, I feel that there is now an openness to not only do face-to-face learning techniques, but also, of course, distance learning and remote. So this is something I'm particularly interested in because my partner works in education, teacher trainer and certification especially. I'd like to welcome Ada Ip. Hi, Ada.
Hi.
Director of WYNG 43 Social Investment, an investment company focused on finding social innovators and mission-focused startups. She's also moderating the panel. Timothy Yu, CEO of Snapask. Hi, Timothy.
Hey. Hi, guys.
Hey, Snapask, of course, is an online service matching users with elite students for personalized tutoring services and homework help. And joining them is the CEO of TinyTap, a company specializing in educational games and interactive lessons. This is particularly interesting to me. Hello to Yogev, Shelly.
Hi, thanks for inviting me.
Hi. All right, I'll hand over the session to all you three to have a spirited conversation about EduTech and trends in investments. Thank you.
Thank you, Roma. So welcome. It is the second day of the Startup Impact Summit and it's mid-morning. I hope you already have your coffee or maybe have a drink with you. I'm very excited. I know Timothy for a long time and then just met Yogi, and they both have very exciting EduTech company. I wouldn't say startup anymore. They have been here for a while and making huge impact over the world. They started to have a global, they are having a global business now. And just to introduce myself, my name is Ada. So my company, WYNG 43, we invest in purpose-driven companies. And myself also is managing a environmental sustainability startup called Urban Spring right now. It has been extremely challenging, and I'm sure the same for Timothy and Yogi, in particular in the past 9 months with the COVID and the cultural, I guess, the social environment. It's even more challenging, but exciting at the same time. So if I can probably start with having Yogi and Timothy to introduce their company and themselves to the audience, because not all of them may be familiar with the two companies. May I start with Yogi?
Yeah. Hi, Ada. Hi, everyone. So I'm Yogi. I'm the CEO of TinyTap, a company based in Tel Aviv, Israel. And what we do is basically we offer families at home access to learning materials from local and global teachers. So when you come on TinyTap, you find content, interactive content that is created by teachers without writing code, but whatever subject they want to teach. And then families at home can access that, and we do a revenue share with the teachers creating the content. So in a nutshell, building the world's biggest library of learning content created from teachers and publishers worldwide. That's us.
Great. Timothy?
Sure. So Snapask is a platform for high school students and also primary school students as well to get study help. So we connect them with tutors from university to get a one-on-one instant support. So essentially how they use it is just very literally take a snapshot of their homework and we connect them with a tutor right away. So we're serving about 3.5 million users right now all over Asia, in 8 different markets in Asia. We primarily focus in Southeast Asia and also East Asia, Japan, Korea. Yep.
Great. Wow, fantastic. So Yogi, we were talking a little bit earlier about how with the COVID and the lockdown, your business have exploded in a good way. So, can you explain a little bit about or share with us in terms of what has happened in the past 9 months for your business?
Yeah, I'd love to. So basically, I think all of us in EdTech, I've been doing this since 2012. It's been a while now. And for the most part of our life, we've been a school company where teachers will create content on their own. And in the past 3 years, we've been selling directly to consumers very successfully in doing that. But it's still EdTech, okay? And I think the biggest shift we're seeing in how it is viewed now that is there's a big shift from looking at consumer products, especially for early childhood, as edutainment and moving them into the perception of education. And so kind of the promise here changes. People are looking for education, not just edutainment for their kids, and we need to deliver on that promise. And we saw the demand skyrocketed at the end of March when it's really broke in Europe, US, in Israel. I often compare it to the demand for toilet paper, where everybody just rushed and get all the paper towel they can get. And you can see in the graph that in just 2 days, it's increased by tenfold. Eventually, our sales grew in March and in April by 5x. So from a few $100,000 a month to over $1 million a month in revenue in a single month. And that also brought a ton of new insights on how it is perceived and what people are expecting. And I think the perception of what is expected changed. And even though the demand now fluctuates, we're still enjoying at least 3x since what we did before.
Is it only for you mentioned earlier about the early age. Do you think it sort of applies to probably the other age groups as well? And also, obviously, the promise is different, which means that you have to pivot your content as well. So what has been the challenge?
Yeah. So if before, since we're working with consumer, directly to consumer, it's a lot to do with how we market and what the people are responding to. So marketing for consumer apps in education for us worked for very young ages. So even though it's a platform and in the school it was used all the way to the 6th grade, it's a very visual platform with voices. It lends itself really well for language learning. When we started marketing to consumer, our age really went down to 2 to 6, okay? That's what our creative got us. And with COVID, the age range really increased all the way to 10. Yeah. And if we moved from 50% of our customers being under the age of, it was 2 to 4 is like 60% of our audience. Now it evens between all ages. So it's like 20% per age. And so you need to provide different needs. We believe that young kids until the age of 4 are there to explore. They can touch, taste, feel. And this kind of contract changes from 4 and up, 5. Parents have an agenda. They want to see learning happens in a very curated way. And that's our challenge, basically, because we get content from all over the world and we need to provide English, math curriculums with our content and fit those kids' needs. So it's a whole set of new needs that we're now answering. I'll add here that I think that if you look at EdTech companies in the past, we all worked on where business was at. So business is not mostly math, English, and the big countries, okay? Who can pay for that. And that's where all EdTech zoomed in on. And now because of COVID, because we're moving online and this is going to be with us for a very long time, and even if it's not, if COVID is going to be over, I hope the world is going to continue, we're missing a lot of content in the world. All of us EdTech community have been focused on those 2 subjects and those few geos, and there's so many languages that you need to cover now, and there's holidays and local events and traditions and stuff that just never got like the digital treatment. And that's exactly where we want to fit in. TinyTap, empowering people to create that content.
Wow. How about you, Timothy, for your business? Because you obviously work from a slightly older age group and also on the tutoring side. So how is the trends and surprises or pleasant surprises for your business?
Right. So I think if we're talking specifically about how COVID has bring impact to the entire industry, I think it's quite obvious in a way, because schools in most regions that we're operating in and in general, all over Asia, probably, or all over the world, it's during the last 3-4 months has been suspended. So no one can go back to school except for Taiwan, one of the major markets that we're in. School is still ongoing, but because schools are suspended and very naturally tutorial schools are also suspended. So there is this whole dynamic of how parents are subscribing to different types of service on top of the day school. They want their kids to go to tutorial schools. Before they wanted to buy into all sorts of different classes to try and pack their weekly schedule as full as possible. And then there is Snapask, an online platform or other online tools that they're subscribing to. But now because of COVID, when all these other options are closed, there is only this one way that initially it was like a complementary tool. Now it become the mainstream. Now it becomes the only options that they can have. So since February, March, when the pandemic hits its peak, we observe a very high traffic coming in. Like users, they usually started using the app like 6-7 p.m. Until 11 p.m. We see a lot of users, they started using it in the morning because after all, schools are suspended, but exams are not. So eventually students still need to prepare for exams. So that's the insights that we are seeing here, especially in the tutorial industry.
So do you see any pivoting that you have to do for your business as a result of this, the recent events?
I think it's less of a pivot because initially we were all online, like prepared very much for this type of situation. We're not built for this situation, but I think ultimately learning can happen online, not as an alternative. It should be the mainstream, as I said. It should be it could be much more effective. You don't have to go to tutorial school. You don't have to spend time in a whole class of 40, 60 students, or sometimes in Asia it's crazy, right? You have classes where it's 200 people in the same classroom. So there is no interactions happening, which leads to a very natural results, right? Students, they're not getting personalized help. They just don't, they're not used to asking questions, and they have to be spoon-fed until a certain age they realize this doesn't work for me anymore. So like in Snapask, we encourage very much that students, they should build up the ability to self-learn. And with our tools, instead of pivoting, I think we're more like building out everything that we observe it's very much needed during this situation. I can give you one very good example. So when in the beginning of school suspension, one trend, and I think it's very naturally happening, was schools are asking their teachers to start using Zoom to teach, right? It's very natural. I think it's quite simple for them to use as well as a tool, but surprisingly, it's not as simple as we imagined for these school teachers. And even if they can turn on their camera, like run through all the hassles to start hosting a class online, they just cannot interact in such an effective way, as in like 40 students, some of them are sleeping, some of them are on their phone, and some of them are like turn off their cameras, just not paying attention, right? Everything can happen. And these teachers, they're just not trained to host such a type of group classes online. And I think this is something that we can do a lot to support the teachers and all the educators on top of these school teachers, all the other tutors. There are tools and ways that we as an online platform can support them to do the online teaching much more effectively. Yeah.
Great. So maybe switching gear a little bit on another topic, which is important and of interest probably with a lot of the audience, would be on the investment side. I mean, Yogi, you mentioned obviously with the content, the marketing, there's a lot of sort of working capital that you need, cash. Although, you know, probably your last, your company has been doing really well, and the last fundraising was already like 2018. But you're looking at maybe needing some fresh fundings now. And then Timothy, as I understand, your last fundraising just happened just before the COVID. So that was end of February, but you're looking already for your next round. Maybe I'll start with Tim this time. probably if you can talk a little bit about, you know, maybe two things. One is in this recent fundraising, what you have done sort of differently, and what's your, you know, what was the sort of vibe as compared with your last one. And then I guess in the upcoming one, with what's happening in 2020, what you envision you would do differently in preparing for your fundraising.
Right. So great. So about fundraising, I think it's I always say it's not a milestone or achievement. It's always like a necessary evil. So you must do it. It's a full-time job for any company, any tech company with fast growth and potentially a huge burn in operation as well. So we closed around in February this year. So a couple months ago, I think we were in a we're quite fortunate to be able to close the round right before COVID hits. But if like looking back, I don't think it will be such a drastic difference between pre and post COVID for some industry, for the investment appetite in some industry. For example, healthcare and education. These are and entertainment as well. I think these are industries that will become a lot more in demand for any types of investors. So just one example, one of the EdTech company in China, WYNG, so they recently raised around 750 million US in their series, I don't know, G or I forgot. They just have A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and so on, right? So you can see the appetite for investors is looking more and more on high growth markets. For example, Southeast Asia, especially during pandemic, it exposed a very big weakness in the market in the entire country, where if school stops, learning can actually stop for the entire country. So what are the tools that probably the government is paying a lot of attention to, the school system, the parents are paying a lot of attention to, and if it hits again, or even if it's not gonna be, it's something prevented for future, the pandemic is prevented for the future, still education will be, online education will be the options that everyone would want to invest their time, invest their attention into. So I would say we'll just keep doing what we're good at, building online tools and services, and we'll invest a lot more into developing quality content, quality self-learning content for students in markets that we're operating in.
Yeah. Yogi, do you have a different view, or what's your strategy for your fundraising?
I'd love to. So I think the biggest challenge in fundraising amid COVID, not before, and going forward, is that even though like we see the spikes, like you reach like you 5x your revenue, and then the next month you can go down by 2x, and it's just much more fluctuations than before. And we as a consumer company running a lot of marketing campaigns to reach those audience. We're not doing any B2B, it's all direct to consumer. We rely heavily on statistics and data to identify segments. And those are now changing fast. Like you used to find the country that works and a segment that works, and you got it. And for example, we know that in France, we don't have enough content in French and in Dutch. Okay, and we would like those countries to become profitable for us. So it's a matter of creating a community there or localizing some of our content. And we actually embarked on such a project. But then COVID happens, and suddenly French and the Netherlands are a very profitable country. And so your plans are changing all the time because there's a lot of demand fluctuations. And so I think investors are careful of that as well. So when they hear that there's a lot of success now, they also created it to the world. And are simply out of their normal tools of understanding the data that a founder will present to them. So I think it's very important to cross like a diagonal trend line that can go through the fluctuations, also reflect on what you did before COVID to show like the progress that you've done, that it's not from that. So that's one challenge. So obviously it's good to be successful, but it's definitely a challenge. But like Timothy said, everybody's awakening to the fact that it's not just for a few months. And even if like the world is completely back to normal, it can't go back to normal because our work life, us as grown-ups, our work life has also changed. And I think the 5 days work week is gone. It's just going to be a basis for every company. And that creates different time with the kids at home and more involvement in education and more opportunity to guide them in solutions like what Timothy is offering or what TinyTap is offering. And people will recognize that and understand that just like we're saying that schools haven't changed for 100 years for our kids, every EdTech company has that presentation. Like, look at the class, it's the same as it was 100 years ago. We realized work, office, it's just the same as well. We just focus on kids and we haven't looked at ourselves. Now this is changing, it's changing the world. I think it's a great time to get into EdTech. It's funny hearing Timothy saying how healthcare and education are booming, because I know those two industries have a lot in common in how challenging it is to work with organization and regulation in schools. And it's fulfilling to be a necessity and not a nice to have. And I think that's the new world. It's a necessity.
Yeah, you guys also, both of you are sort of consumer, sort of end user base as opposed to facing, I guess, schools. So maybe just some comments on geography. Do you think there is a specific geography which are sort of different from the previous growth? Do you see new growth areas in terms of countries, or the past 12 months hasn't changed that much? Maybe Timothy?
I don't think there is any, there is a huge difference between markets. The demand for more effective and personalized way of learning has always been what people are looking for. But just that COVID accelerated the entire process, allowing people to realize, just like e-commerce probably 10, 15 years ago, if everyone is so used to buying things offline, actually have a taste of it, like trying to have a tangible feeling of that product. But essentially they find out I can do it online. The whole logistic is so seamless and I can get it the next day. Once you started it, you cannot go back. So for education, it's just the same thing. And geographically, of course, as I mentioned, there are some regions that are not impacted as heavy as others, for example, Taiwan. But I don't see it growing slower than any other markets. Still, people heard about the news elsewhere. They feel like now, actually, and also thanks to the media as well, they have been putting a lot of emphasis on what the new future would be, what the new standard would be. Maybe what we started when we started the company, there is this one topic that we always discuss with the fellow educators or investors or team members. We all are thinking about what if in 10, 20 years, school doesn't exist anymore? What if we can do everything online? Like you can save 8, 10 hours that you're spending going to school, staying at school, and coming home from school, right? And this is also something that we can very much get a reference from for the work from home logic as well. If everything you can do in the office can be done at home, like why bother to go back to the office? Same logic for school. So I think this is something very interesting to think about as well.
Yeah.
I'd like to comment on that, Timothy, about the move from school to home and from office to home. Why bother? What we found as a company is basically that once we moved to working on Zoom as the new office, it has been, I've been the most productive. I had so many goals for me for being, getting to meetings on time and getting all my tasks done and all my emails in a day. And I can finally do it at home because everything is super scheduled. I go into a meeting, I focus only on that. I go to the next one. But what we're missing is that casual conversation in the office kitchen, or maybe drifting off on a creative idea and maybe missing a meeting, but you're breaking something new that we all worked for a very long time, and those magical moments are missing. And so we believe there's always going to be a fusion. And for us, at TinyTap, for example, it's 2 days at the office now and 3 days from home, and you need that. And I think the world will find that for school as well. So people are already doing homeschooling know about it, how you do the curriculum in-house, but you also have some social time. And you're going to go meet people when you need to meet people, to talk to them, to be with them. But when you need to work, you don't need to be with them. That's the biggest change I think we'll see.
True.
And if I may add about your questions about new segments. So we see, I see it in two verticals. The first one is, like I discussed before, the age range is changing, and the demand of what kind of promise is happening is changing. And obviously more countries are opening. But we're also seeing something else that is very interesting. In the past, when we started the company, we were very much school oriented because teachers adopted the product and used that. And so we tried selling to districts in the States and understanding that process. And quickly you realize that basically that's not the route, not for revenue, and surely not for investors. The moment you bring up like selling directly to schools, it's the end of the meeting. That's used to be the norm. And Timothy, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know how it is in Asia. And I think now those big, massive, behemoth organizations are opening up to that need, like schools, governments, and we're seeing organizations who have reached out to TinyTap for creating government-based curriculum. So it's not us working with the governments, but organizations who are creating, they need to create now 3,000 pieces of content for 150,000 students within the next six months. They come to our platform, they create it, and we've developed an SDK for them to take it with them. And so that's a huge opportunity that we just completely crossed before, working with those big organizations. Maybe now it can change because there will be a true demand and need.
Right.
Okay. Thank you. Tim,
yeah. No, just I agree very much. I don't think it's a binary option. Either you go 100% in the office or 100% in work from home or study at home. It could be a hybrid in the future. Like depending on what kind of needs the users or the interactions require the circumstance, then they have an option for doing it at home or doing it in office or school. So for example, doing a scientific experiment, you don't expect them to do it at home, right? You do expect them to do it in a very safe environment and to interact with others. But for work, I think one thing I can share on top of the what Yogi has shared as well. So in fact, we have changed our Hong Kong and Taiwan office from a pure office to a shooting studio, like a content production studio. We just renovated it, started doing the renovation now. So because the reason is we realize actually we have a lot more space because people are moving from like 100% working like Monday to Friday and in the office to probably 2 days, 3 days a week. And the rest of the time we can actually use the space to make more fun, creative content for students. So I think this is probably a trend that a lot of other companies would change the use of the office. And I think the same trend will goes on for schools as well. If we can have schools to change their classroom, laboratory, the playground for other purposes that still allow creative behaviors to happen and learnings to happen in school, that would be super powerful.
Yeah. Well, great insights. Thank you all. So we have got 1 minute left. So I probably would ask Yogi and Tim to probably share sort of maybe 2 or 3 last sentences with the group, either to an investor, you can do your pitch, or to someone who is looking to fundraise in EduTech. So for me, my biggest takeaway from this session, it's almost online education. It's a must, a necessity for the future. It's here for good, regardless whether it's COVID continues or not. So I'll leave the last sort of 1 minute to both speakers. Yogi, you want to start first, your last 2 sentences?
Yeah, that's what was super interesting to hear you, Timothy, and relate that we're not even in the same vertical and we're experiencing the same challenges and opportunities for sure. So, for us as a company, as I mentioned, we did a working capital raise during COVID, and we've completed what we needed on our end. And there's on one segment that is left, and Angel Hub is basically managing that part. So if everyone is interested or have questions, Karen and his team is helping us reach out to Hong Kong and their network of investors.
Great.
Yeah, so I think there is still a lot that we can discuss about on the trends of how education is evolving and how the world is evolving after COVID. I think a lot of the sentiment right now is it's about how the tech company is going to thrive, how are they going to become even bigger after COVID. And I think one of the other insight I want to share as well is for traditional companies that are heavily hit by COVID, they are not sitting there just to survive. They're also doing a lot of change to cope with the changes as well. And you can see like a traditional tutorial scientists, they're changing their entire teaching online. They're leveraging their current IP and teaching resources to build a much more compelling online, offline offering for their subscribers. So I think this is a trend that will go on and happen for the foreseeable future. That we don't only compete with in the past only edtech companies, other edtech players, but now we also have traditional companies transforming into the place that we are in right now. So I think this is something very interesting to observe. And yeah, who knows? Maybe in the future there will be a major consolidation of the market. So very exciting to see that. Yeah.
Great way to wrap this up. So I think our time is up, and I can go on for hours on this topic and want to get to know much more. But let me thank you both, Timothy and Yogi. Speak to you guys soon, and let me pass it back to the host, Roma, and enjoy the rest of the summit. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Thank you very much.